Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm Reagan Sonnabend. I'm a small business owner and entrepreneur, as well as real estate investor. My focus in real estate investing is on corporate housing, and I will be hosting my first workshop January 25th and 26th. It's an in-person workshop in Bridgman, Michigan. So if you'd like to learn more, visit me at reagansonnabend.com. Today, I have got a guest I am so excited about. This is Mike Jackson, and we've had the opportunity to interact for a little bit over the last year at different times in different ways, but really got the chance to know each other better recently when we spent a day with Pace together. There's nothing to bond you like rappelling down a boulder, right?
That's exactly right. I can't believe I'm on a podcast with you because did I see you on a Pace Morby advertisement somewhere?
Oh, I was on his podcast about a year ago, but then he did actually, there were a couple. He made a video with me about my workshop, but then Julie and I were on there for, it was a Gator commercial. That's
Yeah.
right.
I could have sworn that I saw back to back you and Julie talking about Gator opportunities. So I feel like I'm in the presence of a celebrity.
Oh my goodness. Well, ditto, actually. It's so funny. I mean, not only your name itself, but truly, I
There.
mean, I really think of you as an OG in the community. And I know I was telling you before that I went to text you at some point recently and then saw this old text from like a year ago when I first had joined the community, and I ended up, getting put on your team during a challenge, or it was kind of an after the fact thing. But I was like, oh my gosh. And you know what was cool too is when we were at Pace's house, and he has a couple of those posters around, and there were different people that had signed from different masterminds and things. And I'm pretty sure you were on one of those, right?
Yeah, I think I'm on a couple of those. My first mastermind I went to was in 20 years. What year is it now? 2025. I think I went to 2021 or 2022. And then I went to the last one, the last big mastermind, which actually felt much more like a conference. There were
Ah,
hundreds of people there. It was awesome. We got to see Dean Graziosi, and
wow.
it was fantastic. So yeah, I've been in the community a long time, very long time.
That's amazing, though. I mean, I can imagine how things must have evolved over that period of time. So compare the first mastermind you did with the last one you did, like how it's grown. What was the difference between point A and point B?
Yeah, so a couple synchronicities to what you've talked about so far up until this point. I think we're 2.5 minutes in. It's fantastic. My first mastermind I ever went to, I was hanging out with people like Dom and Angie Milanazzo and Carly and Myron and Carolyn and all of the people that you it's so interesting because you kind of see them in these Zooms and then
Yeah.
you don't really know them until you meet them in person. It's
Mhm.
like I said before with you, it's kind of like meeting a celebrity a little bit, right? And so I got to create these fantastic relationships with those people and others at the first mastermind. And the first one was at Pace's office. I guess it was really the Keegley offices
Uh,
where we met up for the first where we met up for the day with Pace.
mhm.
And there were about 50 or 60 people in there. And it
Mm.
was very intimate. You know, it was you could go up to Pace, you could go up to Cody, you could go up to Matt Beard at the time. He was there too, and Pace's wife, Laura, and ask them questions and that sort of thing. As SubTo has gotten bigger, obviously
Mhm.
there are more and more people who want to go to the mastermind and have that face to face with Pace and the guest speakers
Mhm.
and people like you.
Mhm.
And so the second one I went to was probably 400-500 people or so.
Whoa.
It was dramatically bigger.
Wow.
And I think also, and that was at a casino. That was at the Talking Stick Casino,
Ah, okay.
which was very interesting for other reasons. Um, but I think the best thing about going to these masterminds is first of all meeting people like you and
Mhm.
being able to connect again. And it
Mhm.
feels when you go to the squad ups or you go to the masterminds, it feels like you're kind of connecting with old friends again.
Absolutely.
And it's just the best. I
Mhm.
absolutely love it. In fact, speaking of Carly,
Mhm.
I sent Carly a text message today. We were exchanging text messages, and yes, I'm an OG. I've been in SubTo for almost 5 years. It's gonna be 5 years in May or June,
Oh my gosh.
and I feel like I'm getting old. I feel like I have much more gray hair than I did before. Um, I said to Carly, she was asking me to help with a podcast thing, and I said, Is this the audio one or is this also video? I predict I only have a few more years before my youthful looks transition into an older, distinguished gentleman. So I want to make sure I can archive this complexion while I can. And, what's great about SubTo and just the real estate world in general is that you're presented with different challenges every single day. For example, yesterday, Reagan, I was probably different than your challenges today.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part about it, I think that this is why people like get old, if you know what I mean, they start to walk differently, your brains start to kind of not work the same, is because you get in this sense of complacency and routine. And the best thing about what we do, even though we focus on one or two things specifically, the challenges in those one or two things vary from day to day. So
True.
I'm incredibly lucky to be in this community, incredibly lucky to be friends with you and on this podcast with you. Thank you so much.
Well, of course. And, I think it's so much of what you said there really resonated with me. And especially since I am much newer in this journey in the community than you are. And I think about Squat Up coming up and, some of the things that have already, people starting to talk about it and whatnot. And I can remember when I went to Squat Up last year, I was still very new in the community. I knew very few people. I had met so many people by the time I left Squat Up, but at the same time, it's like a fire hose, right? So it's like you start to recognize the faces, but you're like, wait a minute, were you the one that did this or the one that did that? Like, it's just a lot all at once. And so at that time, I could not imagine being where I am today. And what I mean by that is, things like our Day with Pace and the opportunity to work either one-on-one or in small groups with so many folks in the community, and really to have embraced this, feeling of it being like a family. Like you said, it's like old friends, like everyone, in the Airbnb together. You've got, 2 or 3 guys sharing a bedroom, and sometimes somebody's on the couch or whatever. I mean, it's just an entirely different experience. And in order for the community to get bigger, it has to get smaller, and to have those small interactions like that, to have like really truly quality relationships outside of what's taking place on the, the side chat.
That's such a great point. And, you asked me a question before, what it was kind of like being in SubTo at the very beginning to what it is now. And I think I was number 300 and something in SubTo, and now there's over 15,000 people.
Wow.
And I remember when I looked on Facebook, the SubTo Facebook account, and there were 400 people in that Facebook account. And I thought to myself, I very vividly remember this. And I said to myself, this better shut down quickly. Like they better stop accepting new people, because I think what's going to happen is the value that we all get from SubTo, you almost want to selfishly hold it, right? And be like, I'm the only person who knows this. And that's such a small-minded way of thinking. And I kick myself now for even thinking that in the first place. But the more people that join SubTo, it's just more opportunity for us to connect and have opportunities together. And I think it's one thing that's kind of missing with the newer people who are joining SubTo now. I think Pace tells everyone, go make your friends, 50 friends, 100 friends, whatever that is. I don't think that's taken as seriously as it should. And the 50 people that you meet initially may not be the 50 people that you're closest to as your experience in your people, based on connection, just emotional connection, friendship type of connection, but also business relationships. And you have to put yourself out there to make those relationships.
For sure.
The people who are loudest in a positive way. And what I mean by loudest and positive is, how do you provide value to the community and to each other, right? If I'm out here going, hey, help me, help me, help me, I'm taking, right? I'm not giving. And I think one thing that I've learned a lot of things from Pace and the community, but the biggest thing I've learned from Pace and how can I give? And, if ultimately that results in a great relationship, fantastic. If that results in a deal that we do together, unbelievable. If it results in nothing, that's okay too. But I'm here to give as much as I possibly can. And I hope everyone kind of takes that into account, and we can all just make more friends, do more deals, and all of that good stuff.
I love that. And, it really is true. And that's one of the things that I've come to recognize in different times in different ways. but that, this community is really a self-sustaining ecosystem. You could literally not go outside the community. And that's the beauty of it growing. Like you were saying, it was 400 at first. And of course, you've got the SubTo community, you've got the public, Facebook group, you've got Gator, you've got Top Tier, you've got all these things added together. But like literally, you could never go outside that group and do every deal you need to do going forward for the rest of your investing career. That those things all exist, and you've got people doing different things and put together. It's pretty awesome.
And I hope that I do deals with only inside community people, because I feel like our community requires a little bit more of a little more integrity, right?
Yeah.
We have accountability to not only each other, but also our fearless leader, right? We want to make sure that we're doing right by ourselves, our community, and him. And I only want to do deals with people who are going to work towards the goal of the transaction itself, meaning we win, a seller wins, an agent wins, corporate housing tenants win in your case. So that's the only way that I want to work on these transactions. I hope everyone else feels the same.
That's so true. Ironically, I was at a meetup in Milwaukee earlier this week, which I had never been to there. It wasn't a SubTo meetup. It was just an investor meetup. But Sean St. Clair was there. And so I saw it like 24 hours before the meetup. But I'm like, holy cow, I'm going to go to this meetup. And ironically, I met this guy that had emailed me last week that I went to spam or something, but he had seen me on Pace's podcast and he needs help with his first transaction. He's looking for it to be his primary home and what have you. And I was standing there kind of explaining this to him, about the community, because I told him, I'm like, I'm going to refer you to somebody else for the TC help you need, because I'm not actively doing that, but I've got plenty of people to refer you to. But, and he's actually coming to squat up. Like he's already, like committed. And that made me think about like Casey and people, that have had that same experience, like kind of going to squat up, not as a member of the community technically yet, but to kind of just see what it's all about. And I told him, like, you are going to be amazed because, people know that they'll be held accountable. And so that really does, really help police any kind of things that might be going on, because nobody wants to be kicked out of the community. And, there's certainly plenty of other reasons as well, but that is a powerful thing.
I think that the weight of the community, and this is very unique to SubTo. I've not been in a lot of other mentorships, maybe one or two other ones, but the feeling of SubTo is much more community based. And that's only because of the way that PACE has structured it.
Sure.
Right. There are local leaders. There are virtual leaders. There are people who are every single day waking up at 5 a.m. to host a Zoom, and it's consistent. And if you take a look at any of the other communities that are out there, it's not the same feeling.
For sure. So let's talk about that. Talk about what you are doing in the community now. I mean, I know you've been in there 5 years now at this point, which is really amazing in the community. But like I said, I had this, kind of recognition that I was in your group in the Elephant Challenge it was, which is, earlier iteration of No One Left Behind Challenge. So tell me about the team that you're leading and kind of how that all works, how people become a part of your team, and maybe what things you see going forward.
Yeah, sure. So when I joined SubTo, I'd already been in real estate for probably 15 years or so. And my focus before I joined SubTo for maybe the previous 2 years or so was direct to agent. And I was a commercial real estate agent before. It's just kind of a world that I feel much more comfortable in. And I can have those conversations. And for me, I can talk to a seller, but it's not, I don't have the same comfort level that I have talking to an agent compared to a seller. And so when I joined SubTo, what I really wanted to learn was how can I take these opportunities that don't necessarily fit into the cash bucket and transition them into something that I might be able to help a family out with and make a little bit of money at the same time. And so I focus strictly on direct agent. That's my whole business. It's just direct agent. And it's transitioned from building close relationships with agents, specifically targeting cash deals, to building really close relationships with agents to help them with anything, whether it's cash or creative. And, we can do anything within those two buckets. Cash and creative kind of fit every single thing that we can do. So when we met in the Elephant Challenge, which was actually, successor to other challenges before. I think that
Right.
I've joined every single challenge that Pace has ever had. Like
You've done
literally every
every
single
one?
challenge. I think I've been in every single one. So I've been in what was the first one? Zero to Hero, Elephant Challenge, Money Bee Challenge, No One Left Behind Challenge. I mean, there's probably 4 more that I've also been a part of.
Amazing.
But what I love about those challenges is that I can work very closely with my partner, Dawn Walker. She's up in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And we can help people get their first deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's intimidating when you get into the real estate world. You don't know exactly what it is that you're doing,
Right.
which is totally normal, by the way. I think a lot of people really look at themselves and think of themselves or they beat themselves up because they don't know things.
Mm-hmm.
But, we weren't born with this knowledge,
Right.
We learn it at different times in our lives. There's no, you should never feel bad about not knowing something if you've never learned it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the beauty of those challenges is we were able to help so many people get their first deals. And we focus primarily on creative deals within those challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So we still do cash deals aside from that, but we focus on targeting low equity on market deals.
Mm-hmm.
And what our team does, whether it's a challenge or just our team in general, is their job is to create interest, have a conversation with an agent,
Right.
discuss their needs and see if we can find a way to meet those needs. And, that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't really take into account is the fact that we can help everybody somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's sort of like when we were at the day with Pace and Pace was on the phone with Emma's agent. Remember that?
That was amazing.
Yeah. And that's all recorded. I think it's in YouTube or something like that. But the way that Pace takes a conversation, even if he can't help with the initial goal, right? I think he was calling about potentially buying at SubTo.
Mm-hmm.
He transitioned into how can we work together on something else?
Yep.
Right? What does your area need and how can I help you? And it turned into much more of a lender type of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so our goal is that every person that you connect with needs something in their business or even personal life sometimes. Sometimes they just need a friend to talk to. And so what my job is to take that, to figure out what the need is, work with my team to figure out what that is, and then help them out in the best way that I possibly can.
Find the bunnies.
Find the bunnies. Find the bunnies. So that's what we do. So we focus on cash and creative deals, direct to agent, typically on market. We love cash deals that are off market, preferably. but there's a big need for SubTo deals for low equity right now. So that's what we're focusing on.
Really interesting. Now talk about the geography that you're focusing on currently.
Great question. So when we first met in the Elephant Challenge, we had to focus on nationwide leads. And the reason for that is because we were training between 300 and 500 people 3 to 4 days a week.
Wow.
And so what we were doing is we were providing them with data. And it's very hard to pull low equity data in even a big state like Texas and say, hey, you 300 to 500 people go call these 75 leads and see what happens. So we had to go really far and wide. And we did deals from Washington to California to South Carolina and Virginia and Florida and everywhere in between. That was a challenge. And the challenge that we experienced was that if I'm trying to sell a deal in a market that I am unfamiliar with or don't have buyers in, how do I do that responsibly? And, the responsible part has kind of been a really big thing for me recently. I want to make sure that if I am wholesaling a creative deal, it's being sold to somebody who's going to make the payment. It's not worth making $5,000 or $10,000 on these deals and then struggling to sleep at night because the person that you sold it to is a maybe.
Yeah.
Right. You want to make sure you sell it to someone who is confirmed as a good buyer. So what we've been focused on recently is just Texas and Texas alone. I live in Austin. I will personally buy deals all across the state of Texas, preferably in some of the larger markets. What we'll typically do with them is either wrap them, sell them on owner finance, or keep them as long-term rentals. The other ones that we wholesale, we're making sure that we sell them to people primarily within the community that we have proven that they are going to make payments. So we're focusing primarily on Texas, and that's it.
Got it. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And that's cool that, between you and Don, you have different areas of Texas covered. So when boots on the
Mhm.
ground are needed, that can be a reality fairly easily. I mean, it is booming in your area. I mean, probably has been for quite some time in reality, but I just feel like every conversation I'm in seems to somehow or another go to Texas.
For a lot of reasons. Texas is, so I'm from California originally.
Mhm.
I have the sign here. You can't see it, but I used to have the sign right here. It said California Republic. You may have seen it in Elephant Challenge.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
And it's a bear that's surfing, and I love it. And by the way, hearts go out to people in California right now.
Oh my
Really,
gosh.
really tough.
Brutal.
Um, but yeah, Texas is an interesting place. When I moved here 6 years ago, it's the Wild West. Literally, it's the Wild West, and things are done very differently here. And
Mhm.
so I think that even though, California is its own animal, you're in Illinois,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
Illinois has its own issues, right, that
Oh,
are
yeah.
kind of probably a little bit stricter than things here in Texas.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have to learn really quickly. So, one thing I always encourage everyone to do is make sure that the markets that you're doing business in, you understand the rules, regulations, because they do change.
So true. Not only for buying, but if you're, going through the whole contracting process, is it a mutual release state, all of those things. But if it is a buy and hold, the fair housing laws that are relevant to your, municipality, as well as even, the county and things like that. I tend to really do a lot of research on those things to understand, what I'm doing from a landlording perspective.
And think about things like taxes, how taxes are handled
Mhm.
depending on how you hold that property. Or insurance, right?
Yep.
Insurances have gone skyrocketing here in Houston for good reason because we're seeing
Mhm.
hurricanes
Yep.
just blow through Florida, and the same thing obviously in Florida for obvious reasons.
Mhm.
And we have to deal with really high taxes here in Texas, which means that you're not going to find a cash flowing SubTo. I'm sorry, you're just not going to.
Mm.
And if you do, you're underwriting it incorrectly. So and that's a unicorn deal. If you find a cash flowing deal in Texas, we should hold a day-long Zoom about this deal because it's sort of like it's the unicorn of a deal.
Ah.
So yeah, all things kind of lead back to Texas when it comes to creative for some reason.
That's so interesting. You're right, though, definitely, as far as, the insurance thing, I mean, without question, Texas and Florida are the 2 states that we experience the most insurance claims, with our corporate housing business, and, it's like you said, a lot of it is, hurricanes, but there's a lot of fires and things too, so, it's I don't know, that's a whole different, conversation, like you said, what's going on in California right now, it is, I mean, it's devastating, but of course, I know people may be seeing this in the future, but we don't know what the end game is going to look like on that yet. I mean, it's just there's got to be some strategies, to deal with this kind of solution. So, or with this kind of an issue. In any case, it's good to kind of hear you summarize, kind of what you've been doing. I mean, you've helped, I know, so many people in the community along the way. Let's talk about Squat Up. I mean, that's in your backyard and that's coming up here. It will be like a family reunion.
I love Squat Up. I freaking love it. I hope you don't mind me swearing by saying
No.
freaking, but I love Squat Up so much. It's 2 or 3 days of an opportunity to connect with old friends,
Hmm.
make new ones. And I can tell you that every single event that I've ever gone to that is SubTo related,
Hmm.
small or big, I always make new connections that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend yesterday who lives here in Austin. He's in SubTo. I
Hmm.
actually met him in the Elephant Challenge, and
Ah.
I was hosting it with Don, and I mentioned that I was from Austin. In the side chat, he says he's also from Austin.
Hmm.
And an hour later, he was at my house. I'm coming over to your house. I said, okay. And what's crazy is that he's the Scottish guy who came over from Scotland, obviously,
Oh my gosh.
and he owns 140 burrs. But you look at this guy and you're like, how did you do all of that in 2 years? He did it. 2 years,
2 years. Oh my gosh.
140 single family burrs.
Wow.
And we've created this great relationship where our families hang out. We do business together. We talk about things. We brainstorm. And that's kind of the same thing with Squat Up is
Yep.
how can you create new relationships that feed you either professionally or personally. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing you again.
Ah, thank you. Same. I feel like we all had such a great time in Arizona, and kind of thinking towards Squat Up, and even between point A, point B, and afterwards. Let's shift just a little bit to what do you need? What kind of things should people bring to you, or what kind of help are you providing to others? What would you like people to reach out about?
I want people to bring me SubTo deals in Texas, Dallas, and San Antonio.
Mhm.
My buy box is pretty strict. Don't hate me for it. It's just I've learned not to buy not bad deals, but just
Mhm.
deals that don't make sense for me.
Mhm.
So I'm looking for 9% entry fees or less that include everything, all closing costs, all commissions paid, all of those sorts of things.
Mhm.
And I'll look at 4.5% interest rates or lower.
Okay.
No balloons, no solar. I don't want any of that stuff.
Mhm.
Those things are pains in the butt. And I've only learned that from experience. So it's not that
Sure.
someone says they're bad. But in terms of, in the vein of being able to help the community,
Mhm.
whatever questions a newbie has about the process, as long as they're going through the process and working it.
Mhm.
One thing that I've seen in the challenges that we've done is they'll bring you a lead
Mhm.
and you ask them, okay, well, tell me about the lead. And they say, well, I haven't really talked to the agent, but I've just identified it as a lead.
Mm.
And, I think that as you get busier in business, you realize that you can't really focus on pulling out all of the bunnies all the time.
Right.
Right. So if you're actively working a deal and have questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer anything. I spent
Mhm.
an hour on the phone yesterday with a couple people talking about insurance issues and assignment
Wow.
of insurance proceeds. So if you're actively working something, reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Amazing. And how can people reach you? What's the best way to find you online?
The best way is Instagram. My handle, I never understand this. I'm too old for Instagram, but it's at Mike Jackson SubTo. I don't know if I'm supposed to say the at,
Okay.
but that's my handle. And DM me, and I'm happy to touch base. And yesterday, the people who reached out to me, they DM me, and we were on the phone within 10 minutes. So
That's amazing. Wow, you are on top of it.
I had a few minutes, but yeah, it's reach out to me. If Reagan and I are Reagan's big time. So if you need anything, reach out to one of us. Even if we don't know the answers to these things, we know people who do. And we're not afraid to say that we don't know, because we care about the end result of these transactions.
Well,
So reach
thank
out to either one.
And that's so true. I can think of so many times that when some newbie or another, someone you meet at a meetup, they have questions, and you're absolutely right. If I don't know, I know who to connect you to, and that's the beauty of this community for sure. Well, Mike, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you at Squat Up. And everyone, don't hesitate to reach out to Mike online.
Thank you, Reagan. Don't hesitate to sign up for Reagan's workshop. January, what is it, Reagan?
25th and 26th. Yes.
25th and 26th. How can they get a hold of you, Reagan, for the workshop?
Yes, my handle is consistent. It's Reagan Sonnabend, and actually the workshop website is pretty much the same. It's reagansonnabend.com. So I'll include the link below. Thank you so much, Mike. Have a good
Thank you,
rest of your
Reagan.
day.
Great to see you.
You too.